Hey all, quick update on a feature that we just rolled out. We now incorporate the multi-zone method into determining your outside air intake at the system level. So in HVAKR, when configuring a system, you'll now see the option for multi-zone in determining your outside air intake. And so looking at a report for HU1, I now see the sum of spaces ventilation at 4,300 CFM, but with the multi-zone method, my actual outside air intake needs to be around 4,700 CFM. So what is the multi-zone method? Per ASHRAE 62.1, when calculating the outdoor air intake for a multi-zone recirculating system, VOT, we need to take a uncorrected outdoor air volume and divide it by our ventilation efficiency. So this is for air handlers serving VAVs, that kind of system. Anywhere where your ventilation comes in at a central unit, mixes, and then gets distributed to multi-zones. So first, VOU, the uncorrected outdoor air intake, is very similar to calculating VBZ. You take your people rate times number of people and your area rate times the area, and you sum those up. Except with your people rate, you are applying your diversity to that, your occupant diversity. And that's how you're going to get your uncorrected outdoor air intake. So in HVAKR, when you're configuring a system and you're selecting for this method, it's also important to check out your occupant diversity, as that's going to affect your outdoor air intake required. Uncorrected outdoor air intake is a function of diversity. That's how we get VOU. Now, to get ventilation efficiency, there's a simplified procedure here in ASHRAE. That's what we're using in HVAKR. And it's also a function of diversity. So if your diversity is less than 0.6, it's going to utilize this equation here. And if your diversity is greater than that, it's going to use just 0.75 as your efficiency. So you'll notice this EV, also a function of diversity, doubly important to incorporate that to get an accurate value. And now, as a fun little demonstration, I just split these screens in HVAKR so that I can play around with the inputs over here for this system and see how that's going to affect the outside air intake required and ultimately the load on the coil. So if I have a diversity of 90, my outside air required just went up and the tonnage on that coil went up as well. Whereas if I was more careful with my diversity, applying 50, I'm going to see that reduction, and I just shaved off about 4 tons on that coil. So while I'm demonstrating the multi-zone methodology in HVAKR, it's also a good time to remind you all that your occupancy diversity can have a big impact on your loads, not just because it adjusts for your people loads, but also it adjusts for your ventilation loads.